What's up, chess players? Today I'm very excited to share this video with you because we are gonna learn the London system. The opening that I really hate to play, and I'm gonna explain why, but opening that is so popular, especially among club players, and I'm gonna analyze your games, guys, how you have played the London, and of course, how you should not play the London. So, let's get started. In the first game, my subscriber, not a joke, has played as white, and he played the London system here with bishop f4 and e3. And the reason why I hate to play it myself is that it's so boring. I mean, you're just constructing this whole thing, and well, you're very solid, you're rock solid, but how are you gonna play for a win? I mean, what could be even the plan here? What is the reason to play it? Yeah, I understand. You don't need to learn a lot of theory. You just know your first, like, I don't know, 5 to 10 moves, and everything seems to be fun and easy. But I mean, you're not improving your chess with it. That is, I guess, my biggest concern. Okay, so let's get started with this game. The level is around 7 to 800 rating, so bishop g4 here is, I guess, a small inaccuracy because that's the second move with the same piece. And you remember, the ideal structure is just one move per one piece, not more than that, because if you're making more than that, you're giving your opponent an advantage. He has an opportunity to develop more pieces, to make the castles and just get ready for the game and just start crushing you. So you should ideally try to avoid. But your opponent has made it, so you're completely fine with that. h3, yeah, I mean, I would prefer developing a new piece, making castles instead, but h3 is almost never a mistake. Bishop takes, and now you have a pair of bishops, which is always great, but it's still London. I mean, the position is so solid for both sides. This knight on c6 is usually weirdly placed because it's not allowing you to play c5, and then, yeah, you're feeling a little bit passive. But maybe black's idea is to play e5, bishop d6, preparing the move e5, because remember, you need enough defenders, like white has two attackers for the square, so you need at least two defenders to make it possible. And right now, black has only one, but black says, I don't care about that. I just want to play e5, and I'm gonna do that immediately. And of course, that would be great. I mean, attacking the bishop if it goes back, then e4, winning the bishop. But once again, not counting the number of attackers and the number of defenders is just a crucial mistake in chess at the beginner level. So remember to always do it. Only if those numbers are equal, you're allowed to make such a move. In this case, white has more attackers, so white is taken here, enjoying an extra pawn, and yeah, basically, of course, that's a dream case scenario out of the London opening. So knight to d7, but I mean, even here, if you just play bishop to d6, what is so special about this position for white? Yes, you have a pair of bishops, that's true, so this bishop has no opponent, and that's great. But if black, sorry, is ever gonna play e5, I guess black would avoid all of the problems here. So yeah, I'm still not a big fan of it. But e5 is, of course, just completely losing the game in one move. I mean, you can say that's just one pawn. What is so important about that? First of all, it's a central pawn, so it's here stabilizing the whole position, covering the king, and of course defending this d5 pawn, which is now suddenly a huge problem for black. I mean, if you play knight d7, which would be logical to attack the e5 pawn, then you lose the d5 pawn, you lose the second pawn, and of course, yes, that would be huge, and that is what happened in the game. But you don't really have another square to go. You can go to e4, but that would lose the pawn immediately. Once again, you don't have enough defenders. You can go to h5, you can go to g8, but that's such a horrible move. Going back, so you have spent 2 tempi for this knight and nothing has changed in your position. That's exactly what you should always avoid. So what happened is knight d7, but now the second pawn is taken, and black played knight takes e5. At least black is getting this pawn because you don't have any time to take this knight on e5 because the queen is hanging. So what happened is takes here on d8, rook takes, and now bishop takes e5, and we are going into this endgame. I don't like the move bishop b5. Just remember, never make this check just with the purpose of this check if your opponent has an opportunity to play c6, because if anything, you're just wasting time with it. And this pawn on c6, it would be pretty useful for black, so I don't recommend you to do it. So after c6, white played bishop to e2 back, and it's possible to just do it immediately here. Like, why would you need this check? But it's a minor thing, not that it really changes anything in the game. So b5, yeah, now you could see that this c6 move has helped black to create some additional opportunities, which is of course good, but of course in this situation it's not really dangerous for white. What is important for white is to finish the development, because right now you could see that only this bishop has been developed, nothing more, and of course you need to change it as fast as possible. That is why white is castling and then playing rook d1. I mean, that is a good strategy if you are some material up. You want to exchange the pieces. You want to get rid of as many pieces as possible. So that is what white is doing here. Takes, and now bishop went to c5, knight to a3. I didn't really understand this move, to be honest, because I don't see what the knight is doing here. First of all, I mean, you still need a few tempi to make use of it, and also you're allowing your opponent to take, which is what happened in the game. And now your pawn structure is completely compromised. And yes, you have bishop against the knight, and I usually say that bishop is stronger than the knight, but this knight is so active, and those pawns are so horrible. I don't like this exchange at all. I would prefer developing the knight to a normal square like d2, and then it could still go to b3, and with a tempo, notice you always like to make a move with a tempo. From there it could go to d4, which maybe was your idea. I don't know what was the point of the move knight e3. But also the knight can go to e4 and in general be active. That is the main purpose. But knight e3, I mean, that is such a weird move. If you have a choice, always try to go towards the center, not towards the side of the board. So knight d3, allowing that to take. Now knight to d3. That is a very, very weird move, because the knight doesn't create any threats. And remember, you still haven't developed all of your pieces. So development is the key. Even though it's already an endgame, it's still the most important thing to develop all of your pieces, to just bring it into the game. It's like when you're playing football and one team has 11 players on the field and another one has just 5, and everybody else are standing there just, I don't know, exercising, not taking part in the game. Of course, the team with 11 players would have a huge advantage and would just crush you. So in chess, it's exactly the same thing. You need to bring all of the players into the field. And so instead of knight d3, I guess king e7 is great, because you don't need to castle, because the whole purpose of castling is to make sure that your king is safe. But in the endgame, the king should actively participate in the game. That is why once the queens are off the board, typically you would like to have your king somewhere in the center, if of course there is not a direct danger, but that is definitely not the case here. And then the rook is free to go here. Rooks always love the open files, so d file would be a perfect file for the rook. And then black has a very good compensation for this pawn. I would say that black is almost not worse here, and from practical point of view have a very good chance to fight for something here. But knight d3, it's wasting time. Once again, a lot of moves with the same piece is bad, and not creating any threats at all, not attacking anything. So I don't get, even the move knight c4 I could somehow understand, because at least it's creating a threat, but knight d3 doesn't. I don't like it at all. Now a4, b4, just helping white basically, because if you have a bishop against a knight, you would like to open up the position, to have more, I don't know, those weak pawns, more of diagonals to control with the bishop. That is, of course, the power of the bishop. So white is, getting something out of it. f4 is once again a weird move. If you have a choice between developing a new piece and making a move with a pawn, almost always you prefer developing, because then you have an active rook. I mean, you don't care about this a2 pawn. This one is doubled and you take the c6 pawn and your rook is very active. You're just completely crushing now. So don't care about the pawns, care about pieces activity. That's the key to success. So now f4 has been played, c5, once again rook c1 was possible. Castles, castles is incredibly weird, like I said. Now this king won't be active for the time being. You would still need 2 tempi to bring it back to the center. In the endgame, always try to bring your king to the center, because there the king would be useful for you. Now finally rook c1, developing it, a3. I'm not sure it's a good move, because here the pawn is protecting the bishop is protecting the pawn. It's a beautiful structure. Once you play a3, first of all, you're pushing this knight from b4, where it was doing absolutely nothing, to d3, where at least it's creating some threats. like attacking the rook. And yeah, this a3 might be a target one day. So instead, I don't know, I would maybe try to bring the king. Be careful not to blunder king to f2, of course. So, but of course, it's not a huge mistake. Definitely, black is still much worse here. c4 is blundering the pawn. Once again, remember to calculate the number of attackers and the number of defenders. It's so essential in chess. Now takes. Yeah, but takes with the bishop is weird. Like, once again, you want to exchange the pieces. You have two extra pawns here. Of course, this one is doubled, but still, two extra pawns is almost always enough if you have a bishop against the knight. Just exchange the rooks. I mean, exchange as many pieces as possible. Once again, back to the football story. If you have 11 players against 10, of course, it's great. I mean, you have just more people on the not on the board, on the field. But if you have just two players against one, that's a huge difference now, because you literally have twice as many players on the field, and of course you're gonna win a lot comparing to 11 against 10. So that's exactly the same here in chess. If you have more players, you just need to exchange as many things as possible. Everything that is moving, you should try to exchange it. And bishop takes c4 is also creating a problem for you. I suppose that you wanted to just win the rook here, but yeah, remember, you should not really try to play that hope chess, so to say, when you're just hoping your opponent to blunder, and otherwise, if he's not blundering, if he's playing king to f8, then you're just making a bad move here with bishop takes, because now you are in the spin, you can't take with the bishop, you can take with the rook, of course, but then you're entering the rook's endgame territory, and that is a completely different story. In the rook's endgame, even two extra pawns, as incredible as it might sound, might not be enough to win the game, because suddenly here the a4 pawn is hanging, it's not possible to save it, then the a3 pawn is going to be weak, and yeah, good luck trying to win this game. It wasn't happening for some reason, because black played knight to b2, and of course blundering this bishop takes f7, and you might argue, okay, well, the plan has worked. The man played bishop takes c4, trying to threaten bishop takes f7. Black didn't realize it, and that is why white is winning here after bishop takes f7. But next time, your opponent would be smarter, and this idea wouldn't work. He would play king f8, and then you're not gonna win the game, and yeah, that would be very sad. So please try to never play hope chess, try to focus on the strengths of your position and play according to the general principles, which I'm always trying to teach you in my videos. So afterwards, of course, it's very simple here. White has just pushed the pawns. Here, one instructive moment, once again, about exchanging the pieces. White just played rook takes e6, and I am completely fine with that, because you have three extra pawns in the pawn endgame. You're just making life simpler. Of course, it's not necessary, but it's the simplest thing to do. And now, yeah, of course, white is completely crushing with those pawns and finally delivering a checkmate. Stop. Don't go away, wait for the second game, because it would really help you to learn the London system. In this one, you have seen that, well, white has just made the starting moves and then black blundered the pawn. But in the next one, it was also the London, but black really played very interesting, very aggressive, so it's gonna be a very instructive game for you if you want to master this opening. So this game started with d4, d5, and yeah, once again the London, but once again this black is playing here knight to c6, which is kind of weird for me. I could never understand the point of it, because why would you do that before playing c5? Now you don't have any ways to develop your queen, now you're not fighting for the center. I mean, just remember, first, you play c5 and then you play knight c6. Of course, I'm talking about d4, d5 openings. And I guess the point is that in the e4, e5 openings, it's all completely fine to play knight c6. You don't need to play c5. But in d4, d5, it's just a completely different world. So remember, try to play c5 first and then knight c6. I'm not saying that it's a mistake. It's a legitimate opening, but the club players and lower-rated players just don't know completely how to play it, and so I wouldn't recommend you to do it. So that is the game of my subscriber Curtis Holzinger, and he was playing as white. Hopefully I pronounced the name correctly, and c3. So we once again have the London bishop to d6. This time white, black didn't blunder to the pawn, but still I guess e5 is the main idea here for black. And you could see that black thinks completely differently from what I was supposing. H5 here, trying to just crush the opponent from the very beginning, and you could see immediately that the game is going to be very entertaining here. So bishop takes d6 has been played, queen takes, and bishop d3. I'm not sure that it somehow brings you something if you are making, once again, so many moves with the same piece. So you play bishop to g3 first, and then you're exchanging the bishop next move. Ideally, you should not do that. You should either play bishop g3 and then don't exchange, or you should exchange it immediately, because basically you have wasted the tempo for nothing here. Here, for example, instead of taking, you could continue your development. You could play queen to b3, creating a threat, attacking the b7 pawn. I don't know, there are different ways to continue, but yeah, this plan feels a little bit weird here. Bishop d3, knight d7, and castles. So definitely black is gonna try to continue the attack here, and maybe even long castles. So yeah, of course, white should be careful with that. h4. Yeah, I guess that's a pretty normal move here, trying to create some pressure. Takes on f5, and I don't really see any significant problems for black. Black is pretty active. Now g5, g4 is coming along with long castles. Although the engine still prefers white in this position. The engine says, well, I don't care about this activity. It doesn't feel dangerous for me. I'm going to defend it. And from a structural point of view, still white is incredibly solid and so a little bit better. Rook g8, preparing the move g5. Very interesting here. What's going to happen? Knight to d2, finally developing the pieces. And a very important rule, just try to remember it. When your opponent is attacking on the side, you should always try to answer in the center. And that is what happened in this game. So if your opponent is playing here, g5, g4, trying to attack your king, you should answer in the center. It's so important that I'm going to repeat it. If your opponent is attacking you on the side, answer in the center, because then you're going to break through there and you're going to have your counterplay, and counterplay is the most important thing in chess. If you are just defending very passively, if you're not creating any problems for your opponent, you're going to eventually be crushed. I guarantee it's going to happen. Of course, your opponent might blunder something, but we are trying to improve your chess, really, not just hope that your opponent would blunder, but really make the game simpler for you. So remember to answer in the center. And that is exactly what happened here. g5 and e4, it's a move with a tempo, and that is why the engine says the position is already much better for white, because the king is still in the center, it's not safe, and now there are a lot of difficulties for black. Black took it on e4, which is another mistake, because now the knight comes with a tempo, knight f6 is also a threat, so the queen has to go back, and then, yeah, there is an opportunity, a potential to attack the king. And also the g5 pawn is hanging, but that is a pawn you're not entirely sure you want to take, because afterwards this g file would be opened for the rook, this knight is going to be pushed away, and yeah, I'm not sure it's what you want to get. Black played here queen to f4, continuing aggressively playing, but of course that blunders knight f6. On the other hand, if you go back to e7, I mean, that is very passive, and I could continue going forward with knight f5. Once again, notice play in the center, that's the key. And now this knight on c6 is hanging. If you take it, then the castles is not possible, and knight f6 is coming here. So yeah, that is a huge initiative for white here. Queen went to f6, but of course now knight f6. Maybe it's not a big deal, so black is saying, I'm gonna just sacrifice and exchange and then continue this attack. And it's so important to understand your opponent counterplay. So g4 is basically the only idea that is ever possible here for black. What does it mean? That means that if you stop it, then your opponent has absolutely nothing. How to stop it? Right now, g4 move has two defenders, and you have only one attacker, which is h3 pawn. So what you need to do, you need to attack, you need to add more attackers for that. So you play knight to h2, just controlling the g4 square completely. Now this move doesn't make any sense because you just take it. Otherwise, you're controlling everything and you're just continuing your attack, whatever you want to do. But it's so essential to stop your opponent's counterplay first. So that is what I would recommend to do. Although white decided to just go on, just try to crush immediately, because like I said, the king is still in the center, and like I said, you answer in the center when your opponent is attacking on the side. So white is using it here. 95, of course, you want to exchange as many pieces as possible when you're some material up. Once again, this very important rule. And now there is a target on e6. A huge target, and of course you want to attack. Of course you want to still continue your development. You want to double your rooks along the e file. Just use all of your resources to go straight up to get to your opponent's king. So rook g6 to defend, now queen takes b7, and this queen is beautiful here. Not only it attacks and creates some threats here, it also protects the key g2 square. That is the most important square in terms of the defense for white, and that one is under control. Also rook e4 is a possibility now with the tempo, and that is exactly what happened here. And then basically there is no defense for black. The queen has to go back because the c7 pawn is under attack, but then the second rook is coming. I mean, everything is great. That is what happened. Yeah, white also took on g4. Why not? We have more defenders now than the attackers. And queen to b4. Yeah, that is a nice way. I don't know if it's somehow an influence from my videos, because I always tell exchange the pieces when you're some material up. I mean, white is attacking here. White has more pieces, white has a more secure king, so everything says that you should continue the attack. But there is one very important but. You have more material. And what do you do when you have more material? You just swap everything off the board that is possible to swap. And of course, from this perspective, queen b4 is the best move. And yeah, that is making it so simple. c5 is the only move to leave the queens on the board, but then yeah, the king is so much more horrible. So from this perspective, also queen b4 is a very good idea. And now after rook to e1, black just resigned because there are no attacking resources. You can take on g4. Maybe that would be the last chance, because that is at least creating a threat. But there is a direct rook takes e6 that is exchanging 2 rooks for the queen, and then you don't have any attack left. And of course, white is going to crash with this queen here. So here you have it. Always use those principles, never repeat those mistakes. And in this video, I'm roasting more of your games, just crushing it completely. That's going to be very instructive for you. Definitely take a look.